little bit about what you guys were hoping to achieve with this album?
I don't know if we ever had any sort of specific goals in mind other than to create, like, the best record we possibly could.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I guess, we wanted to make music that was emotionally resonant. We wanted to incorporate all of our influences as well. It's like, because, the first record, people can say what they want about it, but the fact of the matter is we had a pretty narrow list of influences that we were drawing from when we were writing that one. Is it too noisy in the background at the moment? I can try and sort some things out if it is.
No, it's fine. I can't hear a thing. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, solid. Yeah, okay, all good. But yeah, I guess the main sort of thing would be to create something that people could resonate with. The album itself, like, we've got this weird emphasis on mental illness, and that came about through the narrative that TJ wrote, and the bits and pieces that we've kind of added to that. Best case scenario, if it helps someone, if it helps people, then that's great. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, we were just trying to push ourselves to create the best music we could.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what those influences were. You mentioned there that there were wider influences with this album. What were some of the influences that you were talking about?
We got kind of enamored with the way bands like Rivers of Nile and Fallujah sort of treated the progressive death metal sound. How, they started off as pretty, their sound was, you could say, a vast majority death metal with some other stuff thrown in, but with Fallujah's Dreamless and Where Owls Know My Name by Rivers of Nile, those two albums, you kind of see them really branching out and kind of incorporating some really beautiful music, and it was quite eye-opening. It was like, there's so much potential within this style, this progressive death metal style, to do all these things. So yeah, we did what we could. We also incorporated a lot of there's a pretty strong sort of black metal streak. If you guys haven't heard it, we haven't exactly been trying to hide that, but yeah, as well as Sapphiros. The intro of Sapphiros was very much inspired by Hans Zimmer, and a lot of film music, and a lot of the arrangements kind of took from that sort of massively layered approach. Yeah. As well as post-metal. Post-metal was a really big one. Bands like Depart, a really, really huge one, especially because they've probably made one of the most emotional metal albums of Australia.
Yeah.
It's called Failure to Slide. Yeah, they're just... we listen to a lot of music between ourselves, we go from progressive metal, like Between the Buried and Me, and most of the guys are huge Periphery fans, and we're all huge death metal fans as well. Yeah, there's basically every single style of music that's ever inspired us. I know that's not really much of an answer, but yeah, sorry.
No, that's a great answer. And you mentioned also that mental illness was a big theme that you wanted to look at with the album as well. How did you go about doing that and incorporating that into the lyrics?
We didn't really have much to go on besides our own experiences. That's kind of the nature of mental illness, is that, we did use the myth of Edward Mordrake as kind of inspiration. The urban legend is about, a man in Britain named Edward Mordrake who had a face on the back of his head who would whisper really dastardly, or really not dastardly, but really terrible things into the back of his head. And I think that's a pretty, even in the case of I guess you could say common mental illnesses, they shouldn't be common, but they are. Anxiety and depression, they kind of work, our experiences with that is that it kind of works like that, a delusional voice sort of in the back of your head influencing how you see the world. TJ really wanted to write this story of his, which, and yeah, I think it just kind of it was sort of like the perfect moment. It sort of led the way for us to kind of tackle all these kinds of things that some of us were struggling with, and it's a topic as well that doesn't really have a lot of light shed on it, and a huge factor in that is that it's so nebulous and so hard to kind of pin down, especially because it's so mental illness, whatever it is, it sort of does have an interplay with your personality, or just more by your experiences, and of course everyone has different experiences. So that was the big challenge. So all we could really do was kind of go by what we knew and by what we'd experienced.
Yeah.
In that regard.
How confronting was that for you to read what he wrote about what he was going through, and also how did you feel about putting your own personal thoughts out there as well for everybody to read and hear?
I had a very visceral, very angry reaction the first time I read sort of what he'd written, what he'd put forth, and where it came from. You know, the particular experience in his life that it came from. He hasn't killed anyone. I should probably mention that it's very much an exaggerated thing. TJ has never been violent with anyone. Just
Yeah.
just thought I'd clear that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was really harrowing, especially because it's pretty high stakes. It's very when you're being that vulnerable, it just feels like even if the stakes aren't really all that high, you know, in your head it's like, oh my god, people are actually going to hear me being honest about myself and what I feel, and it was scary, and obviously going to those places and trying to recreate the moods that we went through.
Yeah.
That's going to take a toll, a massive toll.
Yeah. Also, I was going to ask previously too. The first album did so well. Did you feel any pressure going into this album to kind of not recreate the album, but to try and reach the same level or success that you got with the first album?
That's a matter of perspective, really, because we didn't see the first album as this milestone of success. I mean, we saw it as a milestone because it was our first full-length album, and that's always a milestone. We got a lot of appreciation for it. One thing that was really sort of worrying was the fact that our sound had changed, noticeably, and we were worried that we might alienate fans of the old sound. But as it turns out, the metal community is actually pretty amazing and pretty open-minded when it comes to this sorts of thing. And no, the pressure was on, I guess. The pressure was more because we just signed to Unique Leader, and when we started working on this, and it was just kind of like, okay, the bar has lifted. We're not just a random band from Perth anymore. We're actually on a label with, a label with bands that's released records from bands like Fallujah, Psychroptic, all of our influences. We needed to step up and meet that bar,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And you worked with Matthew Templeman on this album as well. Tell us a little bit about what Matthew was like to work with and what you feel he brought to the album as well.
He was incredible. He was so massively patient. He's such a master of his craft, absolutely. His attitude is incredible. He knows what he's going for with just about every style of music you put in front of him. He took our feedback on board. He was so incredibly patient with us because, an album that was this emotional kind of brought out, we weren't recalcitrant or belligerent or anything. We weren't bad to him, but it sort of brought out a very dark part of ourselves, or at least some of us. And he was very patient and very understanding through all of that, very supportive as well.
Yeah.
And of course, his mastery of his craft is incredible. He's got access to a lot of great resources as well. It was and every time we record with him, we learn something. We learn something about how we should go about things and how what to expect next time.
You mentioned there again the kind of dark feeling that you felt when you were putting this together because you were putting so much emotion into it. How did you kind of shut that off when you walked away from the studio at the end of the day? Did it impact your everyday life as well, or were you able to funnel that into the creativity and then shut it off when you went home?
Funnel that into the creativity and what, sorry?
And shut it off when you went home.
I can't really speak for the other boys, but I had a lot of trouble sort of shutting it off, so to speak. It was something that was kind of always there. I mean, obviously when we went to work and things, we would just kind of put it away and just focus on the job, and focus on what we had to do. But yeah, it did take a massive toll on us. We weren't. Yeah, some of us were definitely not handling it quite well. Well, we didn't end up in any sort of dire situations, or we didn't put ourselves at any risk or anything. But, you know, yeah, the moods were pretty intense, and we couldn't really snap out of, I can't speak for the other boys, I at least couldn't snap out of it for a while after, but yeah, you know, yeah, supportive friendships, and, you know, we're all a pretty tight-knit unit. We've got a lot of amazing people in our corner as well as individuals. So yeah, we made it through that with their help, obviously, and yeah.
Yeah. So the album's out. Where to now for you guys? Are you looking to do a tour, or what's next for you?
Touring is absolutely on the cards. The problem is, like, it's a little bit difficult with logistics at the moment because yeah, we've had a few venues kind of double book through no fault of their own, I'm sure. But that's kind of thrown a bit of a spanner in the works for the tour, for the immediate tour that we were going to do for this album.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of regrouping and restructuring how we're going to approach this with all the logistical hiccups in mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess to finish off, what would you like to say to people out there who are still thinking about going out and grabbing the album? What would you like to say to them before they go and grab the album?
We've had a few reports of these particularly dark emotions being somewhat contagious. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but, like, you know, be prepared to, I guess, see the dark side in people's heads, as well as, you know, hopefully, what I would hope more than anything is that people who are suffering have somewhat of a lifeline, or like you know, something that they can resonate with, something that lets them know they're not alone. I guess, like, I'd say pick up this album if you're a fan of Fallujah, Rivers of Nile, Fit for an Autopsy. Those are bands that we get compared to a lot. And Shadow of Intent, of course, incredible. And check out the bands on the guests who appeared on this record. We had Sam Dishington from Depart, who is an incredible, one of my personal favorite creatives, as well as Kyle Anderson from Brand of Sacrifice, who are an incredibly heavy band. They're label mates of ours as well, and they're amazing. Can't sing their praises enough.
Awesome. Well, mate, again, congratulations on the album, and thanks again so much for chatting to us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me, dude. It was really nice speaking to you and, talking about all this stuff.
Not a problem. Well, mate, I'll let you go. Have a great afternoon, and hopefully we get to chat again in the future.
You too. Thanks so much.
All right, mate. Bye.
See ya.